Hey guys, Nick here and welcome back to another video. And today we're jumping into Davinci Resolve to take a look at object removal. And I'm going to show you a few different ways to do it because Davinci Resolve does have its own inbuilt way to get rid of unwanted objects in your scene, similar to that of like Photoshop and After Effects with their content aware fill. But it doesn't work for every single shot. So we're going to actually show you the method of how to actually go in and do it properly like visual effects artists do it. Now, a bit of a disclaimer, I do sort of go through this tutorial in the sense that you already know a little bit about Fusion. I doubt a lot of you are jumping in with this as your first project inside of Fusion. So keep that in mind. And also with object removal, it is one of those really time intensive tasks like rotoscoping that the more time you spend on it, the better it will be. This tutorial is more of a demonstration of the tools that you have available and how to create that effect of removing an object from your scene. And so I definitely don't spend as long on it as I should in the tutorial, but you get to see a pretty decent result even with the limited time I spend on it. So anyway, let's jump into Davinci Resolve and start getting rid of unwanted things. All right, so here in Davinci Resolve, we've got 3 clips to demonstrate this. We've got a really basic static shot, one with a little bit of motion, and then a probably more realistic shot that you might want to work on. So let's show you the quick and easy way to do this. So we can go to this shot here. We're going to go over to the color tab for these ones to start with. And the first thing we're going to do is create a new serial node, which is Option S or Alt S. Alternatively, go to color nodes, add serial node. Once we're on that one, we're going to go over to our mask options, hit the pen tool and just draw a quick shape by clicking, click, 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 click. And what we're going to do from there is go to Open Effects. We're going to search and we're going to search in object removal. It'll be the first thing that comes up. Click and drag, and we're going to click scene analysis to start with. And we're going to go from there and it will do its thing. So now it's done scene analysis, we're left with this little gray box. It's to now analyze the scene. What we want to do next is just under object removal with all the default settings, we're going to go build clean plate. And it's going to go through and pretty simply, there we go, done. And there is a little bit of a lighting shift in this scene, so you might want to animate that. But for the most part, once we get to the normal lighting section, you can see here for that one frame where the lighting was okay, it blends, and then because the lighting does change. So what we're going to do now is going to go to the next one, to the next clip we have. Similar process, so we're going to create a new serial node. We're going to start at the start, so Option S. We're going to use our pen tool to create a mask around the object that we want to get rid of, so this light switch. Doesn't matter how many points you use, but this time, because it's a moving frame, we want to track this first. So we're going to go to the tracker, which is the next one across, and literally hit the play button, just let it do its thing. And the tracker inside the color tab works really, really well. So there we go, tracked nice and easily. And then the rest of the steps are the same. Drag object removal onto that node, go scene analysis, let it do its thing. And then we go build clean plate. And you're going to notice pretty much straight away with this one, we're going to have some weird things going on. And that's just because the build clean plate option, the object removal, is only really good for static shots. Too much movement, even in this kind of scene where it's just like a flat color, kind of gives it some weird funkiness going on. Now we can fix a little bit of that by softening the mask. So with that node selected, go back to your options here. We can soften that mask up a bit. Maybe that's a bit too much. We'll do the inside as well. And you know, it fixes it a bit, but again, like it's a bit strange. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a better way to do it. You might find that this does work for you every now and then, but for most things, probably not. So we're going to delete those nodes. We don't want them there. In the edit tab, highlight the clip you want to do, and we're going to head over to Fusion. Awesome. Let's make a bit of space. Now, if your viewer doesn't look like this, if it looks a bit more like this, just hit this little rectangle icon, get it into one viewer. Make sure your inspector is open by clicking inspector, and totally up to you if you want it to open the whole space. So next thing what we're going to do is with our media in one node selected, which is our clip, we're going to hit shift space to bring up our tool selector, and we're going to type in paint and just hit enter. And that's going to add it in between our 2 nodes. And this little tool allows us to draw. But the thing is the default brush, 1 is drawing a color, and 2, if I nudge back and forth, it paints color onto one frame only, which is not what we want. So we're going to undo that. And up in the top left here, we're going to select the stroke brush. That allows us to draw, and it's going to stick around for every single frame. And then from there, we're going to head to our inspector. Under the apply controls, currently it's set to paint. So whatever color, it's just going to be that color. We want to set it to the next one, which is clone. okay? And that's gonna act very similarly to how clone stamp works in Photoshop. You can see we now have an X under our cursor, and if we hit Option or Alt and click, it'll reference a spot. And then if we start painting, you know, it'll start drawing from that spot no matter where it is. So you might want to make your brush a little bit bigger. That'll be all done under the brush controls. So I'm just going to bring my brush a little bit. I'm going to soften it a little bit more, and literally just going to option click and just sort of paint this section out. Again, you generally want to sample as close to the object you're removing as possible, just so you don't get any sort of light shifts. And we're just going to, cool. And now we have that, and it hides pretty well. We're going to have the same issue as before, where we're going to have that weird like color shift, but it's not going to be as pronounced because we've done it ourselves and it's not a computer doing it. So let's put some movement into this one. So we're going to go into Fusion with the new clip, and it's going to be the exact same process. So we're going to drag it down, and you can pick whatever frame you want to start on. Find it's pretty easy to start at the start. And then we're going to hit Shift Space, add the paint node, enter, change it to the single brush, clone stamp, brush controls, increase the size. And I'm only increasing the size and the softness just so it's easy for me to paint it out. Otherwise we'd be here for ages. We're just going to roughly get rid of that. Paint from there, paint from there, paint from there. All right, so that one, you'd want to spend more time on it than that because that's pretty obvious. But anyway, it's there. So what we want to do is now we're going to track it once we've painted it out. To do that, what we want to do now, Inspector, head on over to the Modifier tab. Here it's going to list all the strokes set up so every individual stroke will pop up here. We're going to go over to our tool selector for the paint node, hit the select tool, and then just click and drag. It's going to select all your strokes. And the last option here is going to group them all together. If you do not do this, you have to track each stroke individually because it treats them all as separate objects. Obviously, you can see that could be quite annoying considering how many there is. So we're just going to go group. Now, under the paint node, we just have the one group if we double click and open it. So what we want to do now is open it, and under the center one, we're going to right click, modify with tracker position. And it's going to add a tracker to the location of where we were painting. But you can see that it's not tracking anything, and that's because there's nothing in the source for it to track. So what we're going to do is click your media in node, click and drag it into there, and straight away it's select the light switch. Light switch, probably a good thing to track, and I'm literally just going to go track forward. And it's going to track from frame 0 all the way through to the very end. Don't worry about the little sort of offset at the moment. It'll fix itself more or less by the end. And it's finished. And so now if we select the media out node and we start from scratch and we play that through, now we have successfully removed that light switch from the scene. And you can see this is where you want to paint it out as best you can, because obviously we do have a little bit of light shift there. We could always fix that by adding a little bit of a color corrector. So there's that there. But these are pretty simple examples, not always going to be representative of how you want to work with things. What about this shot here? You've gone out to the mountains, you've filmed a nice opening shot, and you're like, oh shit, I left my bag sitting on the road. So we're going to bring that one into Fusion. It's the exact same process, guys. Seriously, super, super simple. So bring that down, make a bit of space, and we're just going to go around to the start-ish, and we're going to do that shift space, add the paint node tool, change it to clone stamp, going to increase the size a little bit, and we're going to try and paint it out a little bit better this time by sticking as close to the bag as possible. Obviously, the better your paint job, the better it's going to look at the end. Perfect. You wouldn't even know. So now we're going to do the same thing as before. Select a tool. We're going to drag, select everything, and then group them together. Go to the modifier, open the paint group up, right click under center, modify with tracker position, drag our media node in, and we're going to track forward. And again, don't worry about this for now. It'll fix itself after it's finished tracking. Render complete, done. Now if we have a look at the finished product, that bag is completely gone from that scene, and only up to the very end here do you start to see it, and that's just because there's a bit too much movement, but you wouldn't really know if you weren't looking for it. And there you have it. We've got our shot without the bag, and then we can always go through to the color corrector, and we can, bring the gain down a little bit, bring the midtones up, We could chuck in a bit of a curve and do our little S curve, do whatever you want to do in terms of color grading. Maybe put a bit of orange in there, a bit of blue in the shadows, whatever you want to do, and you wouldn't even know. Really cool way to remove a bag from your scene. And honestly, to fix that little bit at the end there, I'm just gonna like cut that clip short, and then yeah, you wouldn't even know. Well, there you go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It means I can keep bringing more content to you guys, and subscribe for more videos like this one. And yeah, until the next video, see ya.